Hi, I'm John, and I'm an old teacher in my classroom right now, and this marks my 39th year in education. And I'll have students in my classroom here in a little bit. And when I first started teaching, do you realize that I didn't even have a copy machine? They gave me one of these doodads, and I had to hand crank it. Crazy, right? But if you had walked into my classroom, particularly those first 19 years in the classroom, what you would have found is I was teaching the way I was taught. I was taught by a teacher standing up in front of the room and doing the teacher thing and talking at me, and I taught that way. And then I did a little lecture thing, and then we'd have a test, and I'm a science teacher, so we did experiments. And I was somewhat effective in a I would say, a traditional sense. Students learned. I taught advanced placement chemistry. My students passed the test on a regular basis, and did quite well, in fact. I even won a cool award where I got to go to the White House and meet Mrs. Bush. And yeah, you would think that was like the pinnacle of my career. But when I got back from that, I thought there must be a better way. And I got a chance to work with an amazing teacher, Aaron Sams. And Aaron Sams and I had the privilege in about 2007, we wondered if there was a better way to teach, and so we helped pioneer the flipped learning movement. And when we did that, we thought, well, we've invented like a new way to teach that's going to really change the world. At some level, it did. But even then, there was a moment when I was doing an interview with some of my students at the end of the year. I did this final project, culminating, and I asked them a lot of key questions about what they've learned. And what happened is some of the students, I felt like they hadn't been there. They weren't answering questions that I thought were fundamental. It's like, where have you been for the past 9 months? So this was even in the flipped learning context. And I said, man, is there even a better way yet? And so what Aaron and I did is we said, well, I wonder if there's a different methodology. And we said, not all students learn at the same rate. We realized that. Not all students, here's something that I believe about education that's fundamentally wrong. I believe the system says that if you are smart, or if you learn fast, you're smart, and if you learn slow, you're dumb. And I don't think that's a true statement. It's not a true statement, but our educational system purports that. And if students learn at slower rates or different rates, let's just say different, then why can't we create a system? And so that system that we began to play around and implement was mastery learning. And so we began to try out mastery learning. Mastery learning was developed in many ways in a formal sense by Benjamin Bloom in the 1980s. Most people know Bloom for Bloom's taxonomy, but Benjamin Bloom really devoted much of his life to the study of mastery learning, and he really proved that mastery learning works. And so we began to do mastery learning with that flip twist, because we had that flip learning thing going on. And so we had created a whole bunch of videos on our chemistry topic, which is what we taught. And we said, well, what if we time shifted our instruction and then we did mastery learning? And so we began to do mastery learning at little Woodland Park High School. And as we were doing that, we said, oh, it's a great idea, but about the spring of that first year of mastery learning, I went to Aaron and I said, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. Because what happened is our students had such big gaps in who was where, right? So one student or a group of students were a unit and a half ahead of another student. Now remember, we're teaching chemistry. I cannot set up that many different experiments and be safe at the same time. And so I said, we can't do that. But of course, Aaron, well, he's brilliant. And he said, well, wait a second. What if we prioritize our lessons or our unit? So if you have a unit that has 7 targets, objectives, or whatever, what if the first 5 are you gotta knows and the last 2 are the nice to know objectives? And so we had to be okay with some students not learning every single or mastering every single objective. And so that's what we did. Some students would master 5 objectives and some would master all 7 objectives. And what that did is it allowed us to keep the kids together so that they were able to move. And we didn't have to have a million experiments set up. So we did that in the following year. And I could never, ever go back. And I mean, and our life took an interesting turn after we were helping to develop the whole flipped learning concept. Aaron and I wrote a book. The book became very popular, and then we got invitations to speak all over the world. And so we both left the classroom so that we could go and travel and speak around the world. And so as I was traveling and speaking around the world, there was still this nagging sense that there was unfinished business for me. And that unfinished business is that we had started to develop this mastery learning concept with the flip twist, but it wasn't fully developed. And so after 8 years of traveling all over the world, it was a privilege of my life to visit schools all over the world. I felt the call back to the classroom. So I came back to the classroom, in this classroom right here, and I began to do mastery learning, and which led me to write a new book on mastery learning, because I said I want to make sure that this methodology, which I think is the sweet sauce, it's what we need in education, and I wanted to flesh it out, and I needed a lab, so to speak. I couldn't just be traveling around the world talking about this. I needed real kids to work with. And so in my classroom, in minutes, students will come in here and we're going to do mastery learning. And the logistics are the big issue with mastery learning. Everyone says, oh, it's a great idea, but how do I do it with 30 kids in 6 classes a day? Well, I'm doing it with 6 classes a day. You can make this happen. The logistics aren't as easy as what I'm probably describing it right now, and so I'd encourage you to get more training or learn more about how to do this well in your class. And I'm doing this in a class, and then other teachers at my school have started to adopt a much more mastery approach. But it can also be done at a systemic level. And so I've partnered with an organization, cbeignited.org, and they are bringing this systemically to whole systems. It's founded by Richard DeLorenzo, who is a former superintendent of schools, who brought mastery, also competency-based learning, as it's called, competency-based learning, to his whole school district, and saw outstanding results. It was a school district with significant socioeconomic challenges. This works in all contexts, and but it's a lot of work. So I'm not. If you say I love this idea, I'm not promising you easy. This is going to be hard. It's not an easy process to move to mastery competency-based learning. It's a significant commitment of time and energy, but it works. It works. My students master the content. They feel more free. There's less pressure. Just come visit me. Come see my kids. Talk to them. And it's a life-changing, world-changing idea, mastery competency-based learning. And I can't tell you how much it could change everything for you. I know teachers, I bet you're tired. I mean, when COVID happened, and I was here in this room, and well, not really, I was at home, but I cried. There were times where it's like, this is just so hard. And we've come back from COVID learning or pandemic learning or whatever you call it, and schooling has fundamentally changed. And our students now have bigger gaps, let's be honest, than they had ever before. And mastery learning, which is going to allow students to learn at a flexible pace. By the way, don't ever say they can learn at their own pace. Because if your kids are like mine, if I say you can learn at your own pace, some students won't have a pace. So I've got to give them some structure. So it's not an unstructured thing where it's a structured system that you can make work. So if you're a teacher and you want to learn more, I'd encourage you to hop onto one of the websites. If you're a leader and you want to bring this to your system, Richard DeLorenzo's site is going to really help you to bring this on a much larger scale to your school district, to your school, to your system, or whatever. So, guys, you can do this. I know this is a huge time commitment. I know this is a lot of work. It is, but it works. And this is the big idea, I believe, in education that could really radically change everything.